Hello and welcome to our annual Christmas bonus episode of Still Watching the Skies. I'm Robert Reinecke.
I'm Natal Morel.
I'm Cody Lang.
This episode will be joined by Jim Laczkowski.
That's me.
What's your Substack called?
Robert lost
Jim?
his note, so that's kind of why he's stumbling through December.
Every year I change it practically, right? Like we never know where I'm actually hosting my stuff. It is not going to change, I swear. From this point on, it's directorsclub.substack.com.
Got it.
Everything
Didn't
is there.
Substack just get bought by BuzzFeed?
Did they?
No.
Oh, God, that scared me. I
think
know
it
there
was
was
Breitbart.
controversy.
You had a nice post on Eyes Wide Shut the other day.
Thank you, Robert, for your support. Really do appreciate it.
And of course, we're joined by Angela of, well, I will just say Still Watching the Skies, but
Ooh!
but Cabin in the Woods.
We've common law claimed you as part of our podcast now.
Adverse Possession.
Oh, she's back.
Oh,
Okay.
back.
She was looking for a notebook.
Happy solstice. Yeah, I lost my notebook too. It's a wacky night here. No, I'm really happy to be here, and yeah, this is so fun. I look forward to this every year. So I thought about
No car crashes to delay us.
No car crashes. My garage did get stuck shut, but I fixed that problem, so I made it. But I was gonna go look back and do a little little look back on all the movies that we've shared over the years, but kind of a tricky time of year, but I think I will.
No one has time for that.
No, it's time for that.
There's a beautiful letterbox list that I made with all the titles going all the way back to the very beginning.
You did? Okay, I'm definitely going to check that out.
It's in the Skype Messenger, whatever. It's a chat, I guess. Yeah, the chat. It's in our chat.
It's a chat feature of Skype, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
We have a long list of movies. A quite odd and eclectic list.
Yeah.
So,
makes sense.
For our first-time listeners on the Secret Santa episode, we're going to take a break from our usual format of under-discussed science fiction films, and this is our Christmas bonus episode. For the 10th year running, we're doing our variation.
Matt, don't throw them
Christmas
off.
episode X. For the 10th year running, we're doing our variation on a Secret Santa party. Through a blind draw of name and intermediary, each of us received an anonymous gift of a film to watch and discuss from someone else's house. We all know who received the gift and the film, but no one, not even me, knows who gave what to whom. We'll discuss the films at the end of the show. We'll try to guess who the Secret Santa was for each gift. So that is leading off. Why don't you tell us about the film you received, and then we'll take it from there. So
Sure.
Take it away, Nat.
All right. Thank you, Robert. And my film is Going in Style, the original one, not the remake from 2017. This is the original from 1979, directed by Martin Brest, and starring George Burns, Art Carney, Lee Strasberg, and also you might recognize Charles Hallahan, those fans of The Thing, and a nice little cameo from Mark Margolis of probably Breaking Bad fame the most. But
Yeah.
Going in Style, basically there's a really easy write-up here on IMDb saying Joe, Al, and Willie are 3 old men who have resigned themselves to dying. So an uplifting comedy drama. One night, Joe hatches a scheme to put a bit of excitement back into their lives, robbing a bank. And this is, I don't think we got confirmation on this, but I think this is Martin Brest's first feature-length film. There are 2 other ones, Hot Dogs for Gauguin and Hot Tomorrows. But this one kind of launched a pretty solid run of his career. Probably his best-known films came after this. So Beverly Hills Cop came 5 years after this, and then Midnight Run, and then Sensible Woman. Sorry. Yeah. and
then Geely ended it all?
Geely pretty much, ended it all. I think Meet Joe Black was pretty popular for the time. But
yeah.
Anyway, back to Going in Style. This is funny because it starts a trend of pretty much all the movies that we have in this lineup are those that I've seen once before, and this is no exception. I do recall, though, the poster, or at least the box art, which I remember adorning basically every video store I went to in the late 80s, early 90s, and well within that run of lovingly caricatured depictions of the stars of the film. And so in this one, you see the 3 main stars doing a tap dance routine wearing Groucho glasses. But for the film itself, I like it quite a bit. It's a nice performance style for George Burns, and this is kind of his Burnaissance, if you will.
Yeah.
Where he
God, and then Going in Style. I remember Going in Style being a big hit at the time.
Mm-hmm. And I think this kind of carried on through the 80s and 90s. He passed away in 1996, I think, and he was about 100 years old or so. But he would show up, I think it was at Little Caesars he showed up in commercials for that. And he would just, like Bob Hope, he just wouldn't go away. And also kind of during the Carnaissance. And we've done The Late Show for this before.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is right around the tail end of it, like with the Late Show, and then Harry and Tonto was another big one, and then Lee Strasberg,
Godfather 2.
Yeah, and playing very different against very different type for.
Yeah, which that one started the Strasberg Renaissance. So there's 3 renaissances here.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
But no, the film itself, I really enjoy it. It has a kind of leisurely pace, and I just really, really like the dynamic among all of the characters. And each of them, it's interesting because they all have careers prior to this film and are doing roles that I wouldn't necessarily associate. Art Carney, I guess, obviously coming from The Honeymooners and had already done some more dramatic turns in this. But is kind of playing the straight man. Lee Strasberg is more naive and nowhere near as kind of menacing as he tends to be in The Godfather Part 2. And then George Burns definitely gets some of the best lines in the film, but does have to carry, I think, a lot of the more dramatic weight of it. And I think a lot of the reviews talk about it being a more dour film in terms of looking at aging and what one does with their life, just kind of sitting in a room, potentially with like some friends more or less waiting to die and finding some meaning and doing something daring. But I really like the humor in this, and I like that quietness of the humor of some witty characters, and there is just a feeling of things being upbeat. And so I don't see it so much as people kind of wasting away, but people who are finding some of those sparks and shining brightly before they do, and finding some meaning in that. I don't think it's an extraordinarily deep movie, but I just really, really like the performances, especially Art Carney, who I have a real soft spot for. And I couldn't put my finger on it, but he just reminded me of some other more contemporary person in this. I just I couldn't nail it. But no, I really enjoy Going in Style. It's it's a quiet, sweet film. I think kind of a good double bill maybe with the Sunshine Boys, but not as rapid fire in its dialogue. But I think something that really is looking and pulling from the past, and definitely finding some good humor in that, and also kind of updating it for something that has a little bit more of a realistic bent to it. So it's kind of fun, quiet nostalgia. But don't take my word for it. What did you think of Going in Style, Robert?
Oh, you surprised me here. First time watch, I knew about it I knew about it since it came out. As I said, it was a big hit back in 1979, as far as I know. I think it made $30 million versus like a $5 million budget, which is a lot of profit in 1979 dollars. Yeah, it was a pretty big mainstream hit. I just never caught up with it, but reading the credits, it's like Martin Brest was his first big hit, at the very least. So that was something that got me interested. And I like George Burns. I like Art Carney. I like Lee Strasberg. Heck, I like Charles O'Halloran. So put them all together, and it seemed like a pretty surefire bit of entertainment. And lo and behold, it was a pretty surefire bit of entertainment. And I feel that the fact that George Burns comes up with that plan, but I feel like you can point that the stress kind of, I would say, there's certainly an implication that the stress of pulling off that bank heist shortened the lives of Lee Strasberg and Art Carney, but they did get to go in style, I guess, and I enjoyed that. I felt like the trip to Vegas reminded me of Mamet's Things Change, and maybe that was an inspiration for Mamet on that. But I enjoyed that part too, and I felt all in all, I thought it was a strong ensemble. They were all used well. George Burns was enjoying his Burns-a-sance, and it was he was making the most of it too. I think this is probably his strongest late outing, I think. I mean, it's certainly better than he was in Oh God. He has more to do here and more range to play, and I think he does a terrific job of it. So, I don't know if I have anything really profound to say about it, but I did enjoy all of it. How about you, Jim?
Well, I'm kind of with you both in that I wouldn't call this a profound, deep work of art, but it also surprised me differently than I think, especially like Nat was talking about. I see the director's name and think, this is probably going to be mostly comedic and light on its feet. There's a scene where old George Burns cries and, looks at his old family photos, but then he pees himself and goes crying and pissing in your pants like a 3-month-old baby. I guess the whole damn cycle is complete now. And I'm just like, oh, George. Oh, yeah. It got to me a little bit here and there. I mean, it definitely, you walk in thinking, yeah, this is going to be a wacky, goofy comedy. And obviously Nat mentioned the poster, and they're wearing those Groucho Marx masks, and, just expect, wackiness to consistently ensue. And no, it infuses a lot of humanity and melancholy at the same time. I was like, wow, I felt
it's a
more.
70s film.
Yeah, a late 70s film, but it has this nice balance of it, like there is some sentimentality, but the humor is sharp, and yet it's a very small personal story that generates like very honest reflections on aging and friendship too. I mean, just like these three guys together gives me hope that maybe when I'm their age, I'll be like, yeah, come on, Nat and Robert, let's go feed some pigeons. And,
I draw the line at robbing banks.
All right.
I love that George Burns' idea is to stick up something, and they want to stick up something first, and then they decide on a bank. Like,
Yeah.
That's where the money is.
he comes up with just the action first, and then the location second. But I also kind of see this as like a proto Golden Girls.
Oh,
But,
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my mom,
I-
watching this with my mom, she did say, like, would that bank only have one security guard? That's a pretty big bank.
Well, I've never heard of the bank since then, so I think it's likely.
Or what's that movie with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau? Grumpy Old Men, I guess. But they're not doing, they're not doing crimes. But
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, but it's a little more somber than I thought. It's like a somber late 70s take on the bucket list. Only for these three, they only have one thing on their bucket. Let's rob a bank. And then they give the loot to someone who deserves it, which is really sweet, like just the nephew played by Charles Hallahan, I believe. Yeah. So I really like that element, and it's a very good movie. It's not like an all-timer. It's not. I think it slowly became like a cult comedy classic over the years, but I'm more in line with, I wonder why I like Harry and Tonto just a little bit more. Probably has something to do with a cat. But I do love these three performers. I mean, I, of course, associate more George Burns with being, God, and certainly in 18 Again. My first experience with George Burns is a body swap movie that was really bad, but hey, can do a lot worse. So this is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I finally caught up with it.
Me too. I've never seen it before. I never even heard of it, actually. But as soon as I started watching it, I realized I kind of knew right away that this would be a movie that Nat would like a lot because of the actors, and he seems to know like every actor ever, so I thought he would appreciate it. But I really thought the movie had some great moments, like the part where Lee Strasberg's character is having a heart attack is like a really, I think it's quite powerful. Like it's a long shot that's unbroken. The actors are all on the bench, and it's kind of slowly happening, and they there's no cut to close-ups or anything. Like it was a pretty, like it wasn't like a cheap, like it wasn't trying to, make you feel something like overly dramatic. It was just showing you something, and it was hard to watch, but I didn't feel like it was unearned or anything. Like you really do want them to be successful. Like at the end, I really, am sad that like two of his friends are dead, and but he seems just so resilient, and he's just the most badass old guy ever.
I love that last shot of him walking away from the cell door, and then it zooms into the window, and like it actually opens up the space. So I feel like that's more optimistic than the context would suggest. That I don't want to say like he's finally free, but it definitely is something that it's nowhere near as dour or sad. It's like there's an opening up rather than a closing in.
And I do like the subplot of like them helping out the nephew. Like I'm not sure what the US was like at that time, but like it did feel like a real family that you were kind of getting to know that have real problems, and like this money would make a big difference to a family. And because like the guy's already working 2 jobs, and I'm assuming now like no one in New York makes under than like $500,000 a year because it's so expensive to live there. But back in the day they had like real average Joes living there. Well, I guess they're in the suburbs or in the boroughs, but
but still it's expensive. It was expensive back then, and the economy was not doing well.
Like a real, like it felt like a real family, and I felt like this money would make a difference. And just like George Burns' I'm not sure like how to put it, like just his stoic attitude or his demeanor was really fun to watch. And not a lot of actors can command the screen where they're not saying much or doing much. Like he's like there's a lot of scenes where he's just sitting there, but he has a really good presence.
And I like that it's not like, I think it's his nephew, but it's not like he really needs the money. There's not like a major operation for a kid or anything. It's this would definitely help us
It would
out,
help.
but we're not, struggling or going to be thrown out. That it's just kind of a casual, like low key sort of thing. And it's not even like a direct relative. And the other two don't really have any connection to the guy.
And it's not like $1 million either. It's like
a
couple tens of thousands of dollars. And
No, but it does mean,
And most of it comes
it's
from
like
that
a
trip to
substantial
Vegas.
amount for like a middle class
Oh yeah.
person who has to
Yeah.
work jobs.
70s for sure. Yeah.
And
I also
most of it comes from that trip to Vegas where they clean the
Yeah,
house.
exactly.
Also proto swingers.
Yeah, there you go. I will say though, like, I would think like, these days, like being with like three buds in an apartment actually sounds kind of fun compared to like what most people do, like where they're in an old folks home.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, but like being in an old folks home, without close friends at all, like you're just there because it's convenient, right? Like, and I didn't really feel like that it was that depressing, because I thought, oh, that'd be actually kind of nice to have like three close friends you're just hanging out with all day. Like, maybe do something else besides go to the park, but
they seem to be legitimate close friends.
Yeah.
I mean, they know the nephew, and the nephew knows him, and the family knows him.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. So, how about you, Angela?
Yeah, I really found it bittersweet, and in a really surprising way. I think you guys have said a lot already, but I really thought I didn't know much about it at all. I kind of went in blind, and I was expecting kind of a wacky buddy caper comedy. I don't know, but I got more than I bargained for, I guess. And I saw a performance from George Burns that I've never seen. I only know his later stuff, later stuff, and I think he has a really nuanced. I think Cody maybe mentioned before, like he has a really nuanced performance at times that I really enjoyed. It was enjoyable, not just because it was a wacky 70s movie, but I think it had some interesting things to say about aging and friendship as we grow older, and like goals and ambitions, and feeling, initially that it's almost like they're bored. Like I don't recall that the nephew came into the equation initially when they were planning to do this. I think it's kind of like comes into it more. So unless I maybe missed that, but so I mean, it's
he only kind of comes into it because he has the guns and the ammo.
Yeah, right.
And they needed a couple of guns and ammo, so they borrow them.
But it's like, they're doing it because they want a thrill, not because they really want the money.
Because that would change, if it was like, oh, he's so hard up, like this is the only thing we know how to do to like help him. It changes through the initial motive, like motivation for doing this, which is like we're older and we kind of want to live a little and do something crazy, and I just like, I don't know, that spoke to me in a different way that I appreciated. Initially they set off doing it for themselves.
Yeah. The scene where they're trying to put the bullets in the right guns is actually pretty funny.
It is like, that's why it is like really bittersweet. Like there's plenty of comedy and fun, but like also I think it says some like interesting things and has some interesting like self-awareness about, the unpleasantries of growing older and like doing that with people that care about you.
Yeah. I mean, the mortality is definitely hanging all over the movie.
Yeah.
Anyone curious about watching the remake at any time?
No,
I honestly don't know if I've seen the remake or not, which is probably not boding well for.
I
From
definitely
Zach
haven't.
Braff.
Oh
no, that's
really?
Not, no, that's not good.
I do want to say that
Morgan Freeman almost convinces me, but
I know.
But I feel like this is a really good cast because none of these guys are superstars. Like they all
Yeah,
had
yeah.
a boost
Yeah.
at this time, but they weren't, they weren't
Mhm.
Robert Redfords or Paul Newmans or anything like that. They were people who were
Yeah.
recognizable and not recognizable for this sort of thing. But definitely
Yeah.
very, very talented.
Definitely
It'd be like
not
if you did
Reese
character actors, not leads.
Yeah, especially Lee Strasberg.
Yeah, but I love everything with Art Carney in this in particular. I love especially just how his body moves when he's not even talking, but just interacting with other people. Like when he's at Vegas and they're playing craps, and George Mertz is teaching him how to play craps, and he's sort of getting into it, and he just has kind of like this sort of confident swagger. It is a very Ed Norton sort of thing where there's definitely some bombast to it. There's just like full of hot air, but there's also like a pure sincerity that comes across in that. Or when they walk across the guys who are playing the music in New York, like the guy with the steel drums, and he like joins the crowd and he starts dancing and he starts beating the drums and he's like offbeat and everything like that. It just is. It's so convincing that it's just. This...
Or when he. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Or when you give it naked eyes with the. I would presume prostitute.
Escort. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's flattered more than he's actually interested, but he'll take it.
Yeah. But he can do awkward so well, but still come off as a buffoon, but also as a nice guy, like a guy you would want to hang out with and do a bank robbery with.
Yeah.
And go to Vegas with.
Yep.
We'll do all those things when we get old. Promise.
Let's do it.
For sure. Deal.
Well, there's no downside because they said they would be living for free in prison. They would collect Social Security. It was like a win-win.
I'm sure there's pigeons in the yard at prison.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the downside.
Yeah, me neither. Like, I guess dying of a premature heart attack or whatever was not great, but
yeah, at least you go in style.
Yeah,
Well,
my wife doesn't. My wife doesn't watch a lot of the movies that we watch for the podcast, but I put this on today, and she was kind of listening to it in the background, and then she stopped what she was doing and said, "Oh, this is actually a really good movie."
Unlike the other ones we choose for.
Well, no, it's more the sci-fi ones that we choose.
Yeah, sure.
or that I choose, I should say.
Does she intentionally avoid ones that particular members of this podcast choose? Such as,
well, she thinks the ones I choose are the worst.
I was going to say such as Cody.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, why?
But this is a movie where I could watch it by myself. I could watch it with friends, and I could watch it with my parents, and I think I would enjoy it in all crowds. It's actually a pretty, I would say universally fun movie for all groups. If you can deal with how slow it is, but it's not that slow, I would say.
I was actually impressed by how they handle the bank heist itself. I'm wondering how they would handle it. And I think it's just straightforward. This is how it goes, and it will go better than expected.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of the surprise that it went well.
Just the whole movie, I was just kind of on edge because I didn't read ahead what happened, and I was like, I hope just nothing bad or sad happens, and the two guys die, which is sad, but I thought it could have gone way worse. They got killed or something in the bike heist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if this were a Mammoth movie, Ricky Jay would show up and mess everything up. Yeah, I liked that it was straightforward. It's kind of refreshing. Sometimes you hear heist movie and you're like, oh, there's going to be a bunch of twists, or there's going to be some action, or they're going to get in over their heads, and maybe they're going to do more heists. No, it's just the one heist. That's
I can handle it when it's young people getting in trouble, but like old men, I don't want to see these old guys having, like a stressful time.
Yeah.
I just want them to go well and, relax.
Nice
Like
old
the most stressful moment is just them losing money on the subway, like waiting for
God,
the train.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
men.
Brutal.
So Nat, let's kind of wrap it up here. Who do you think gave this to you?
This kind of seems like a Cody joint to me, so I'm gonna say it is my tradition to say Robert for all of these, but I'm just gonna.
It's also my tradition
right
to
at
spoil
the quarter
it
of the
before the
time.
end, so I'm gonna shut up. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna say it's Cody, and it's like a finely knit sweater from a loved one.
Oh, thank you.
Aw.
All right, I'm next, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are next with
Blue
Thunder.
Blue Thunder.
Not Blue Christmas.
No, that's a single watch. Yeah.
So tell
Wow.
the folks at home about this one, Cody.
Sure, I have never seen it before. Actually, I never heard of it before. It's a action film about a police helicopter pilot. Sorry, just trying to open up the synopsis here. Frank Murphy is a Los Angeles Metropolitan Police Department Air Support Division pilot and a troubled Vietnam veteran with post-traumatic stress disorder. His newly assigned observer is novice Richard Lyman-Good. The two patrol the city at night and give assistance to police forces on the ground when needed. And he uncovers a crazy conspiracy. And he is played by Roy Scheider. And the film also has Warren Oates, Daniel Stern, and Malcolm McDowell as, spoiler alert, the villain.
And Candy Clark.
Candy Clark, yep. So I know a lot of films in the 80s are kind of like propaganda for the military or police. I think this is kind of like that, but it's very confused on what it's saying. And I know there's like an opening scroll where it says like these are real helicopters or something, but that's a lie, right?
Well, I mean,
like there's no way that these helicopters were being used then.
No, there's not, and not with all the bells and whistles, but I mean the bells and whistles did exist at the time. But
yeah, I'm sure
they weren't in one
mics.
super helicopter.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It wasn't that one super helicopter.
Yeah, so we have like police helicopters in Toronto, and I would say they never get as close to the ground as they do in this film, like where they're like, dusting out people behind dumpsters. Like I don't think the movie's very good. I think it's kind of silly. I did like that I watched it. Like it was fun. But it is really silly, and it's a very kind of like a oddity, because I don't know if I think the main problem is that it's hard to shoot helicopters in like a fun way.
Yeah.
And so I think for part of the film they have to get them out of the helicopters and doing, I guess, normal cop stuff, which is fine, but it's definitely not as fun as watching jets or really any other vehicle. I'm not sure why. It's just not very, it's just not as cinematic to watch two helicopters fight each other, watch helicopters cruise around. And
Helicopters
I'm not sure.
are great villains, but it's tough to make them heroes.
Yeah, like it would have been better if like they were like ramming them into each other with the blades or something. Like that would have been cool, but
they do get them going under bridges and such, though, at least at some points.
Yeah, like I think the film was doomed from the beginning, or from the script. Like it's not like Firefox at all, where it's like a Cold War cloak and dagger thriller, which is not what you think Firefox is going to be like when you look at the poster. And this one, it's like a sort of like a cop on the ropes. Like I don't even understand like how he gets involved in that special op thing, like, and why he would bring.
He was available.
He was Roy Scheider.
Yeah, I know. The other thing I wasn't crazy about was his relationship with his wife. They seemed like super mismatched, almost no chemistry. Like not who I would think like Roy Scheider would like his character would be with.
Larry Gray is the one that he seemed both well matched with, but not the hot younger female.
Yeah. I did like Warren Oates. I thought he was pretty good in it, but
Last performance, I believe.
oh really?
It's final. Yeah, I think it's final
okay.
performance, maybe. Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
That or Stripes. They're made probably back to back.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, it's not like I would say it's not like a great film. It was fun to watch, but yeah, it certainly has a lot of flaws. Like in terms of just the general premise, and the execution isn't too great either. But yeah, what did you guys think? What did you think, Angela? This seems like a movie you would never pick to watch on your own. So.
Well, I am a sucker for like an action movie, so you never say never. It's not an era I tend to like gravitate towards because I think we've talked about ad nauseum. The 80s synthesizer is like nails on a chalkboard to me, so I cannot.
Aw.
I don't remember you saying that. Oh, okay. Yeah, the
like,
score of this movie sucked.
Yeah, the score was tough, and I spent probably the first 20 minutes of the movie trying to place one of the actors. He looked so familiar, and I'm like,
Daniel
I've seen that
Stern?
guy before. And yeah, and then I finally figured out he's one of the bad guys from Home Alone,
Yeah.
except like 25 years before that. So then I could really settle in and focus, but that really, really was gonna like bother me. I could have looked it up, I suppose, but I was in the movie. I wanted to stick with it. But yeah, it was like fun for what it was. I think there's like you said, there's some problems with just like the overall story. Like they start off by saying like, oh, we'd never put live ammunition in a police helicopter, but then we went ahead and did it anyway. And you're like, well, why would you? I don't know. So yeah, but like for what it was, like it was fun. It was actiony. Stuff happened.
Yep, that's true.
You know,
there was action. Yep. I should say it was written by Dan O'Bannon, which is weird.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like a Dan O'Bannon film to me, but.
Doesn't seem like a John Badham film to me.
Yeah, I also had a hard time with the main relationship with Roy Schneider and his wife. It did not feel believable. There was not a lot going on there, and it was somewhat confusing. But other than that, I mean, yeah.
Interesting connection, though.
Yeah.
To one of my favorite movies, Invaders from Mars, which was written by Dan O'Bannon and Don Jacoby.
Yeah, Invaders from Mars is better though.
Yeah. Oh
yeah.
yeah. That's a lot more fun. But this, it's weird. Like it's dumb. I can acknowledge that. It's still like I don't know, kind of something I would watch with my dad and just just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah, it's a cable. It's a movie you watch on cable. Yeah, exactly.
I wrote down Saturday
and maybe a film that and maybe a film that Chris Nolan remakes. At least that's one of the hot rumors.
Oh, that would be really silly.
Yeah. So I hope he does.
It would be interesting going from Oppenheimer to this. Yeah. That would be fun. Like just do something.
It would be good if you just played it completely straight. And then it would be really good.
Yeah. No, it is what it is. It's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I can just shrug it off in the end, but at the same time, like I like this era a little bit. I mean, for some reason, made me want to rewatch Daryl. Like that's a movie from now you're digging deep. it comes. Yeah, I think that came out like a couple of years after this, where it was just like, yeah, this robot kid is able to like fly a fighter jet with his mind or something towards the end. So you just yeah, you can roll your eyes, but I don't know, it's silly. And like there's especially towards the end where he's just like shooting rockets into skyscrapers and practically killing whoever's working in there or whoever's happens to be on the ground having to deal with the debris. Just like, Jesus Christ. Don't you know that
Paul
there's
Verhoeven would have had fun with that.
Yeah, he would have gone more over the top. I think maybe that's what this movie needed to be. You know, either more straight and more over the top. I don't know. It's like it doesn't. Yeah, the tonal balance is kind of wacky. I mean, like there's of course a car chase, but then mentioning that like drive-in scene where the girlfriend has to go get that disc or whatever from the dumpster, but as she's trying to get it, like the helicopter above her is really making that quite difficult because of the wind and
Yeah.
Come on,
I thought
man.
he was trying to like help her clear the garbage so she could find it.
Oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, no, I mean, like it's fun to watch. Yeah, Roy Scheider and Warren Oates and Malcolm McDowell in the same movie, even if they're all just playing, you know, stock characters and nobody really in depth or interesting. And I guess like O'Bannon and Jacoby were roommates for a while, and they always kept hearing police helicopters flying over, so they sort of came up with this idea, but they're more inclined to do like dark social satire. And they wanted this to be darker. They wanted this to be like more about militarized police and the surveillance state of the world and all that stuff. But no, John Badham was like, nah, let's not do any of that stuff. Let's just make this, you know, over the top and ridiculous. And yeah, it's fine. Like when it's over again, like it kind of leaves my mind. But while I'm watching it, I'm mildly enjoying it. So it's all right. Yeah.
That's a great description.
Yeah, it's fun. It's just a little kind of a head scratcher at some points, but
yeah.
Matt, what did you think?
Yeah, this is also the second time seeing this.
Oh
one,
yeah,
and
okay.
This is also probably the longest span of time between the first watch and the second watch, and probably for many reasons that you've already cited. No, it's fine, I guess. I could watch Roy Scheider direct traffic and probably still be entertained, but I kind of like to see Roy Scheider beating up people with his own fist instead of shooting at them with the helicopter. But
Agreed.
It's
Yeah.
I watched it. This is probably the last one that I watched, and I still don't remember much of anything about it. The one thing I do remember is Malcolm McDowell's "Catch You Later," which may be like ground zero for the 80s, 90s trope of the villain having a catchphrase, and that's how you recognize him, spot him. What is it? Hard to Kill is the big one for Steven Seagal, where the guy is like, you could take that to the bank, and says it like every 5 seconds, just like Malcolm McDowell does with this. But yeah, also it's strange that in a helicopter movie, Daniel Stern is unceremoniously killed by a car. But what are you gonna do? No, I think that's a good point, Cody, that it's tough to shoot helicopters. Like I can see helicopters as the villains, where if you're from a human's view looking up at a bunch of helicopters coming in the background.
Yeah, very scary. Yeah.
Or even I guess if you have a bunch of helicopters like Apocalypse Now, which I guess does both. But yeah,
they should have included
helicopter on helicopter is not so scary.
Helicopter on helicopter, not scary, not sexy, not much of anything. And yeah,
like the ornithopters from Dune.
Yeah, those are cool. Yeah.
As long as David Lynch.
This film should have crossed over with Dune. You're right, Robert. Yeah.
But there's also, for as many plots here, it's just so weird. They assassinate somebody, and then they're trying to figure out why they're assassinating him. They discover that, and Malcolm McDowell is the arch enemy of Roy Scheider, and he's also involved. And they want to get him to fly this because of something, and the microfilm and the blades and the yeah. I still don't remember what's going on other than Roy Scheider is basically in a helicopter blowing shit up, and I am glad that this is also early 80s, so you get your gratuitous nudity, like all of this advanced technology, and what's the first thing they do? Spy on a woman undressing. So good for them.
Yeah, it
in
was
that.
like,
Doing
wait a
nude
minute,
yoga.
this isn't De Palma.
Yeah.
It's not a long goodbye.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
No, this is kind of like more lurid, like a J. Lee Thompson movie or approach to it. But I forgot what I was going to say. I've even forgotten what point I'm driving at.
I think you were going to talk about how it was funny when the helicopter was spying on the guys in the office.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Which is that is probably the best unintentional comedy in the movie, because the curtains are open and Malcolm McDowell just looks out and sees and it's like 10 feet away. Like
it's like, hey, the helicopter's there.
Like 100 yards away.
Oh, we have to get in, but this thing is so advanced that we can listen to a pin drop. Anyone can listen to a pin drop when they're the distance that you are from the actual pin.
Well, even the woman they're spying on, can't she hear that there's a helicopter outside? And
I think they're at a different angle. They're not at eye level of the person that they're spying on.
That's true.
I kind of get the impression that she knows that there's helicopters out there and doesn't care.
I think so too.
Okay.
There's more of a story in the relationship between these police choppers and that woman doing nude yoga than anything else in this movie.
I think it's the neighbor that complains, not her.
I will say the idea of a chase, like a car chase with the helicopter protecting the person who's being chased is a good idea.
Oh yeah, that's not bad. Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything in particular that kind of stands out.
Also, like the machine gun, like the Gatling gun thing on the helicopter, that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. And the idea too of you have to fight people who kind of are on your side, but not really. Like when he's fighting the other, is it jets or other helicopter pilots? I forget, but
the jets come in and they just mess things up. They don't do any good.
Yeah. But no, it's
although.
Go ahead.
I do like the fact that they don't have to spell out to you that the heat-seeking missiles are attracted to the sun reflecting off the skyscraper, rather than telling you that.
Mm-hmm.
I give a point for their, I don't know, subtlety.
Oh yeah. So Robert, you thought it was good? You liked it?
I mean, it has its problems, which I think have been well pointed out, but I do like it as an 80s action film. I mean, I feel like it's trying to be both a 70s conspiracy thriller and an 80s action film. And,
I agree.
And the 80s action film is much better done than the 70s conspiracy thriller.
Well, yeah, because there's lots of dark scenes, and you do feel like it is stuck in between those eras a bit.
And when you cast Malcolm McDowell, and Malcolm McDowell is chewing the scenery like he is he's the bad guy. It's very clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel you kind of lose the 70s conspiracy thriller as soon as you put your hero cop in the impregnable helicopter that can do just about anything you need it to do. It's kind of the same problem I feel that, say, Captain America the Winter Soldier has when he's not the underdog in any scene about halfway through the movie when he takes off with the helicopter. He's the guy that's going to get things done, which, it's fun in its own right, but you kind of take away his vulnerability at that point, which I'm okay with, but I feel like there's a better movie there where he's not invulnerable or he has to work harder to accomplish things. He just doesn't have to turn his head and pull the trigger.
Yeah, I will say, for 80s crime cop action films, I do think they are better when they go a bit over the top, more so.
Yeah.
And just kind of embrace it. I'm not sure if that's what was intended in Commando, but that's an example of what I mean, where.
But it works, yeah.
Yeah,
or
where he's flipping cars and He's got like a
Yeah.
4 missile rocket launcher and stuff, and a huge ass knife. Yeah.
Yep.
And like everything is a
I get
one-liner.
it. Yeah. I feel like Malcolm McDowell is always fun, but he is kind of an underwhelming villain, and I'm kind of going, why is a British dude playing a former U.S. Army officer?
That is a great point.
I never thought of that. Yeah.
I mean, he even complains about the tea being bad, so it's like, what? they're not hiding his Britishness at all. I mean, Malcolm McDowell is Malcolm McDowelling it up, and I'm here for it, but it is what it is. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. It was a big deal in 1983, but I feel it's like almost forgotten these days. There was a time I used to make Jaffo jokes when I showed up at a site, just to observe, not to direct, but nobody gets that joke these days. In fact, they haven't gotten that since the 90s, so I've dropped it.
But you still make it.
I think about making it, but I go, no, nobody's gonna get it. No one's gotten it in 25 years.
I just wanted to say the poster for this is kind of weird because it makes it look like a horror film. So it has kind of the odd, like the same framing as Jaws, where like the main object is perfectly in the center of the frame and it's perfectly symmetrical. But like the tagline is "He's out there," and it's just like Roy Scheider in the helicopter looking at you. So
actually, it's a pretty bad poster if you look at it.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of text on it.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. Bad poster design, guys.
I mean, it wasn't a big hit when it came out in '83, but it largely has been forgotten. And
this is a perfect movie to be on Tubi.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I would say if I was to make a gift equivalent, it would be like I don't know, some kind of like cool like RC toy, like remote control toy.
Yeah.
Maybe like a drone, maybe like a remote control drone.
Yeah.
Maybe you could remake the movie with drones. Drone cops.
Could you have thunder as singular,
nice.
or would you
What's
how
that?
would you pluralize it? Like what would
Blue
the plural-
Thunders.
Blue Thunders.
Blue Thunders. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
I
think
am really curious if
I think
Nolan
Thunder is a
gonna
non-count
remake it.
noun though, so you just say Thunder.
Yeah.
What are you curious about, Robert?
If Chris Nolan is actually going to remake it.
I don't think he is.
I mean,
and I do
it's
think
more than like a vampire film or a 50s spy movie like the other rumors are. So
I do think though that based off of the reactions of us talking, that Jim picked the film.
Interesting.
That's my gut feeling. All right, on to the main event.
Well, I don't know if it's the main event, but I get 1987's Swimming to Cambodia, directed by Jonathan Demme, the great Jonathan Demme. I guess we could say starring Spalding Gray. It's basically a one-man monologue. Jonathan Demme has done these live concerts, performances before, and since Spalding Gray recounting his experiences making the Killing Fields and recounting what happened in Cambodia that the Killing Fields is basically based on. So really, it comes down, I feel like, to storytelling, and I think Spalding Gray is a terrific storyteller. With he goes off on tangents, but the tangents are just as interesting as the main story, and they all kind of wend their way back to it, giving us insight to who he is and what he thinks about making movies and life. And he takes a while, but he actually gets into the events that the Killing Fields recounts, and he explains it in very blunt but colorful, but fun and educational language. So he's a tremendous storyteller. And I feel like that's what the film is about. Is about storytelling. I know Pauline Kael criticized the film because Spalding Gray didn't observe any of the events in Cambodia. He's just relaying them secondhand, and she thinks it maybe was kind of exploitive, giving him gravity that his stories about getting high on the film set and such really did lend itself to. But I kind of think, you know what, you don't have to be there firsthand to tell a good story, and I think Spalding Gray tells a good story, and I feel like the main thing. I don't know if it bears any relation to reality of his film experiences. I don't know any of the characters that he described are actually real in any real sense. I feel the documentary now parody was getting at that, but I don't think it matters because Jonathan Demme is very good at getting down to the little nitty-gritty details and the little sides and the little details that make Spalding Gray who he is, right down to his Ronald McDonald notebook, which he lovingly shoots on the desk as Spalding Gray is settling in. So, I thought it was a very compelling watch and terrific and much better than it could have been. It never became a static monologue. It became kind of a full picture in its own right, just like, nobody shot concerts any better than Jonathan Demme. He had a few peers, but nobody did it any better than him, and I feel like nobody does monologues any better than Jonathan Demme too, which is another kind of theatrical experience that he excelled at doing. And I can't think of many movies. Heck, I can't think of any movies like it. So, another one of Jonathan Demme's unique experiences. So, since Jim laughed at the joke, why don't you take it away, Jim?
Oh, okay. I'll just keep on laughing. Wow. Two things I love: Jonathan Demme and movies where people talk and talk. Well, in this movie, one person talks. So yeah, I was kind of predestined to love this, despite never having caught up with it until now. It's kind of wild to think about because I know at some point I considered myself to be a Jonathan Demme completist, but I wonder if this was a case of it being hard to find for a while, maybe.
Yeah, it's hard to find.
I think it probably still is hard to find.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go on to the Internet Archive at any time and find it, but it's not like it's out there for rent.
Yeah, that might have been one of the reasons. My good friend Colin is definitely a fan, and he'll probably be shocked to learn that it's my first viewing of it. But I'm so glad I did. It's so compelling, and I, as somebody who loves podcasts and storytelling, and somebody like Stephen Tobolowsky did something really interesting with a movie that he put out called Stephen Tobolowsky's Birthday Party, which I don't know if that's readily available or not, but it's just him telling stories from his life at a party, at his birthday party, no less, hence the title. And it's just really interesting, I'm fascinated by people who can craft a narrative, sometimes on the spot, and do it so effortlessly to where you are completely engaged like you are watching a movie. And here we are, and like part of me was a little worried because I'd seen the documentary Now parody first, and I knew exactly what it was satirizing. I knew exactly what they were going for. So I'm expecting, more than just a guy talking to the camera the whole time. And I was not disappointed because you have Laurie Anderson's score and a lot of playful camera work at times, and certainly the editing choices, like when he's having a dialogue or with another person and it's still him, it's cutting back and forth. So he gets creative and clever in the same way he shoots Stop Making Sense as not just being another typical concert film. He does interesting things stylistically. I think the only strike for me is kind of taking us out of that setting by cutting to scenes from the killing fields, which I don't know if it was entirely necessary, but I guess, changing things up and providing some visual context to the stories he's telling, it doesn't harm the film. I just was like fine with staying with Spalding Gray the whole time. Yeah, but I can see Pauline Kael's point to some extent, but it doesn't come across as he's doing this with the wrong intent. I think he's just relaying an experience, relating stories in a way that he knows he can do, and grab people's attention. And certainly he does that and then some throughout, because where it's like, yeah, I'm never bored. I'm never bored watching this. I love him. So I could see some people finding him pretentious and annoying. So I could see people dismissing this outright as like, well, this is not really a movie. It's just a guy talking. But I don't. I find it entertaining. I find his stories compelling. I think he's very funny and often quite vulnerable. It's just like watching a great storyteller firing on all cylinders, and it makes me more curious to sort of see and read more from him, from the past. I'd be curious to learn more about him and see like how he, developed this gift and this craft so wonderfully. It's just, and I love movies where it's, one man like searching for meaning and human connection and, on a very existential level, all that stuff that he's like relaying about what he saw and what he experienced is all really compelling. So I don't know. I'm glad I finally sought this out, and it doesn't like break new ground. It's just kind of cool to watch somebody just talk for 80 minutes and have it not be boring and have really interesting flourishes throughout, like I mentioned. So it's quite good. It's a really special film, and I don't know. I think Jonathan Demme is one of our great filmmakers. So I'm glad I saw this finally. So thanks to whoever gifted this to Robert.
I'm curious, is it everybody's first time watch, or some people have seen this before?
I have seen this before.
I have not, but I have seen the other monologues or whatever you call them. Yeah. Yeah, I found this hard to find, actually. Like until I knew it was on Internet Archive, but
yeah, I checked my library. Not there.
Yeah, I don't think we have it. Not that I know of.
I think Milwaukee has it, but I'm not a Milwaukee County resident, so I don't have access to it. So,
bastards. Has anyone seen like any of the other like Monster in a Box or Grey's Anatomy?
Yeah, I've seen the ones by Soderbergh. Yeah.
Okay.
So like the last one Soderbergh did was like kind of like a documentary. It's just a bunch of live clips put together into one film over his whole career. It's really good. Like you learn a lot about him, as an artist in his whole life. It's not really like this film or like Grey's Anatomy, but.
Oh, that's right. He has a small part in King of the Hill, Soderbergh's King of the Hill, right?
Yeah. Well, and and then Soderbergh did Grey's Anatomy, which is like one of his main books. Yeah.
Demme and Soderbergh, that's a pretty great combo to document your performances with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big time.
It's interesting too, because I think this has got to be like the launch of Spalding Gray as well, and I think like now he's recognized as essentially being a monologuist, but at this time, or at least between The Killing Fields and this time, I think he was more like a struggling actor, and I think this monologue had gained definitely some steam, but where it opens is more or less it looks like an abandoned warehouse, and then you have like the fold out chairs for the audience and very sparse props. So it doesn't look like this is Carnegie Hall. This is kind of like a off whatever the Broadway equivalent of performance art would be for New York. And it's kind of cool that Demme's at least able to recognize, I guess, that spark or get ahead of the curve in terms of, hey, I gotta film this guy. And it's fun going back and forth looking at it from like the perspective of Spalding Gray, but also Jonathan Demme, and this being an experiment of like, okay, there are so many concerts, there are so many musicians, there's a lot of, I guess, sample size. There's a large sample size for concerts to draw from in terms of how I want to craft and construct a documentary, like a concert film. But there really isn't something like that with this. Like Spalding Gray, certainly there are other monologuists, but I don't think there was anyone at this time who was kind of doing this sort of thing at the same style or
no, not the same style.
Yeah. So
I mean, there are
definitely
stand-up
not.
comedian specials.
Yeah.
I mean, I think your Richard Pryor one, but this is totally different than that.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't stand-up comedy.
The only similarity I think is like Lenny Bruce a bit.
Mhm.
Or Eric, I was thinking Eric Bogosian, kind of.
He's closer to the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like basically like he's kind of like a philosopher, like he's like a novelist, philosopher, comedian, but more on the philosophy side, I guess. Whereas that's how I see Lenny Bruce a bit, but this is less about comedy than Lenny Bruce, I would say.
Yeah, like I would say Lenny Bruce, I would think of him as a comedian, and I would think of Spalding Gray as like a monologuist. And they can have
I think about like F for Fake, which is also an essay film, but that's totally different style too.
Yeah. But I just think it's interesting of Jonathan Demme trying to say, how can I put this art form, which isn't even developed yet, into film and translate what this guy is doing and the energy of his performance and still capture that into film. And I think I think Robert's point earlier, or maybe it was Jim's, taking you a bit out of it by showing the clips from swimming to Cambodia, but other things I think kind of capture your attention and do show, here's how we can maybe complement this with film, or here's how we should be shooting this with film. Like I love the lighting when he's talking about going to the brothel and just like tinting the right side of his face, stage right side of his face with green. And I think that's one of the only times there's at least like a change in the color of the lighting. Like the lights will go up and down and focus on the maps and things like that. But just kind of setting that specific mood with lighting in that moment, or like you said with the editing, going back and forth when he's talking about the guy on the train, is another kind of camera angle trick. But no, I really enjoy it, and just kind of thinking, I don't know, it sort of puts you into a director of like, how would you shoot this if you were given this task? What would you want to say, and how can you aid it and show how it can be done, but also not upstage the guy who's performing, who has this enormous task of, no one else to work off of, and just his own words, no explosions, no change of location, and just trying to evoke your memory. And so you just have, like, the audience has to be focused on listening to this guy to get anything out of it. So it's just, it's so interesting to me to watch from the perspective of no spectacle approach to directing.
Yeah. I will say, you can tell Jonathan Demme knows what the 180 rule is. Does match the eye lines very well.
Yes.
On those back and forth conversations.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Angela?
Yeah, I felt like it walked a really fine line. And I think at moments it felt very theatrical, but it didn't get into like performance art. And so I think it, like people were saying, it was able to really captivate, even on film, what you might imagine it could be to like be personally hearing that story, without having to add in a lot to, it didn't need a lot of help. And so I think it was really well done in the fact that it didn't get in the story's way or the storyteller's way. I enjoyed it much more than I thought I would. I was a little bit apprehensive. I know, like we had said, like it's not comedy. So I mean, the parallel with Lenny Bruce was interesting because I find Lenny Bruce's work to be philosophical. Certainly, he wants laughs and to be funny, but also I think it's pointed. But it kind of reminded me of like nowadays this format isn't so rare, right? And we've got people like Mike Birbiglia, who's like humor, but in a very storytelling kind of format versus joke, like different ways of doing that. And so, but
I kind of
still
feel
think
like NPR and just podcasts in general have kind of picked up on this monologuing.
yeah, This American Life is very similar, right? And like people telling stories in the first person, and with different intent. It's not like not necessarily to be funny, but something that's interesting or like poignant in their lives. And so yeah, I had a much better time than I had originally anticipated. Yeah.
I think like NPR After Dark would be a good
Yeah, totally.
Mm,
And I did
yeah.
learn. I learned things that I didn't know. Like there was like a lot of information, along with kind of like the personal story. So it was really engaging. I was kind of transfixed by it. I didn't do a lot of pre-research on it. I kind of went into it, and I was surprised.
I feel also like some of the later seasons of Louis, like Louis C.K.'s TV show, like especially I think the two-parter where he talks like he finds his son smoking pot, and then he has the whole flashback thing of when he first smoked pot and he stole the scales from the school, and Jeremy Renner was his drug dealer, like where it kind of suspends the whole comedy thing and just becomes more like a personal anecdote about like growth and kind of regret and some of the worst things that he's done, and yeah, that sort of thing. What you're gonna say, Jim?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say. What was I going to say?
Jim was gonna say something.
Yeah, I was gonna
so we're just gonna sing along until he does.
Yeah.
I would.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say something to fill in the space.
Robert was gonna say
I did
something.
notice that, like with Stop Making Sense, Jonathan Demme does not pay much attention at all to the audience. He's purely focused on Spalding Gray. I mean, the audience is there in certain shots, but it's not a focus. So it's like we're going to zero in on the performer, the main performer, and there's not even some side performers that we can focus in and see like the little glances and communication and that. But he just focuses on Spalding Gray, and I do feel like Debbie does capture some of the joy that Spalding Gray has experienced just being a good monologuist. So I feel that's one of the connecting factors between Jonathan and Debbie concert films.
Oh yeah, The Moth. I was thinking of The Moth.
The Moth.
Yeah, The Moth is a nonprofit group based in New York City, and it's dedicated to the craft of storytelling. And they turned it into a podcast, and it's very much like what Spalding Gray would do. We should just sing We should just sing for the whole rest of the podcast.
Takashi Miike is coming up soon. So yeah, I don't know if we have a whole lot more, but my guess is Jim gave me that gift, and I would compare it to getting, it's going to be unoriginal here, but some theater tickets to a very intimate show.
Ooh, intimate! I like the sound of that.
A very hip show, yeah.
I'm going to say, too, this may be my favorite movie poster of all time.
Ooh.
Of all time?
All time.
Wow.
It's
That's
tough.
a big
Crazy, man.
statement.
I just love this poster. Like something
good,
about the
but-
arch eyebrows.
I
Well,
should
it's a
recreate
good
that for an
unique
album
poster.
cover.
Yeah.
Mhm. That'd be fun.
So next up is Angela. Angela, why don't you tell everybody about the film you're given?
Oh, okay. Trying to think of how to do this.
Describe it in detail.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Okay. I was gifted the movie Deadly Outlaw Rekka, also known as Violent Fire, which is a 2002 Japanese Yakuza film directed by Takashi Miike, starring Riki Takeuchi and Sonny Chiba.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And it's loosely based on actor Noboru Ando's former life as someone in the Yakuza. The story is complicated, but it boils down to one sort of father figure is murdered by a member of an oppositional group, and then a third group gets involved to try to mediate between those two groups, and they sort of bait the main character into who is kind of they start out by saying that he is like spirit of a wolf or something, like he's extra brutal, like he's a little bit like unhinged maybe, and they sort of say, well, like because
Of his
I'm
Korean,
sure.
his Korean
Oh,
descent.
right. He is
Yeah.
half. I totally missed that. He is
That's
half
okay.
Korean. I didn't catch that. That's why
Japanese
they're
people are
saying like,
racist towards Korean.
yes, I have heard that. I didn't catch that. That was what they were alluding to. That makes sense though. So he is half Korean. I did not catch why they were saying he was like extra mean and stabby, but apparently that's why. So then he decides to start out and he's going to kill the chairman or the leader of the group that originally killed his father figure. He has a best friend, partner in crime. They run this like, their own little gang within their group, and he tells the rest of the group to not follow them because this is going to be really hard. Maybe they won't make it. But his best friend sticks with him, and so they set out to take down this chairman. There's lots of killing back and forth. The one group employs the services, I suppose you'd say, of this other two-person hitman team. So things they start chasing Kunisada. Excuse me, not Kunisada. Start
No, that's
chasing.
right. That's right.
Is that right? Yeah, Kunisada. Which is some of the only like more humorous points in the story of otherwise kind of a fairly straightforward kind of gangster turf war kind of movie. There are some ladies who are also along for the ride. They develop some kind of superficial attachments to, but they eventually send them away as well. And ultimately, there's some rocket launchers involved. They do take out the head of the other of the offending gang, and but the Mr. Sue and Tabata team that were originally assigned to try to stop Kunisada are ultimately unsuccessful. And then the film ends with the one person from the gang that chose to take his retirement and leave. He lives on, and he's like, I guess it says here it's a laundromat. I thought it was just like, I don't know what. He's like hanging out by some like vending machines, and he's like living his best life. And
But
then
what
the movie's
happens
done.
to Kunisada's father at the end?
He like pops up randomly and like winks at the
Like
camera.
Yoda. Yeah.
Yeah, like he has a Yoda moment. That is like the perfect way to describe it. I was just like, what just happened? All of a
He
sudden
comes
he
back
like,
as a Force ghost and says, "Let's rock."
yes, he does, basically. Like he like rises into existence for a moment and like smiles, and then he's gone. So his spirit has been avenged. He's at rest. He's at peace, I suppose. It was a lot. There was a lot going on.
Did you watch this with Matt?
I did not watch it with Matt.
Oh, damn it.
He did come in at one. I mean, I think he's interested because he came in like twice while I was watching it. He's like, what's this? What are you watching? It's like, I don't know. My he did so he was intrigued. He came in at a couple different times. I was terrified when I saw the movie poster for this. I thought it was a zombie movie. I was like, who did me dirty? Because we all know that is like not a thing that I do. He looks like he's eaten somebody. Like, I'm just saying, in the movie poster, he's done violence against the living. And I had to look up the movie because I was like, what happened here? This is not okay. Turns out no people get eaten in this movie, as far as I can tell. But there is a lot of murder and back and forth. What else can I say about it? It's a fairly like straightforward gangster movie in that, you know, the tension is between warring factions. Somebody's wronged, somebody needs to be avenged, somebody gets tricked. The police are like mildly involved, so like there's kind of a little subplot with all of like the people who are aware of the kind of conflict that's going on. Yeah, I don't know.
Really good
People can
description.
jump in. I don't think I did a very good job. It's hard to like draw a straight line through it. There's just a lot of back and forth, and
no, it was really
There's
good.
a lot
Like
of
some-
back
Oh,
and
you
forth.
did great.
Yeah, you did a really good job.
but yeah, I'd be really interested. I certainly, this is not like an area of film that I have seen a lot of movies. Although I do find the Yakuza interesting to learn about, and I've seen a few films, so I'd be interested if there's other people who have like more experience. I'd be interested to hear like how they would put this into the context of the genre more than I certainly can.
Yeah, I can't
Well-
either,
Well,
unfortunately.
Robert is from the Yakuza, so you should ask him what it's like.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
Robert, how realistic
Well-
is this? Yeah. Based on
I have
your
no idea
experience.
how realistic it is, but I feel that Tarantino would call this a revenge-o-matic, and that would
Yep.
fit
Yep.
well within it. I know Jim and I were basically watching it at the same time, and I think we were doing a few texting back and forth, and like going, "Should I be rooting for anybody here?" And I couldn't
Yeah.
really answer that question.
Yeah.
You root for Kunisada.
I mean, I kind of do.
you're-
I mean, he is the main
Yeah.
character, and
Yeah.
it's like they did his father figure dirty.
Yes.
Assassinated him, although he was a tough old bastard to bring down. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
And he's still not dead. Yeah.
yes.
No kidding.
No kidding. He took a lot. I feel that opening sequence was really strong, and I was just kind of settling in and going like, I feel like I wanted the revenge portion of it to get going a little sooner. I just wanted to get their gear and go. And
It's really a love
it took
story,
a while.
though. It's mainly a love story, more of that than a revenge film, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree
It's,
with you.
it's a casual revenge film.
Yeah, casual revenge film is a good way to put it. I mean, I was thinking of this. I think the only other Takashi Miike film I've seen so far is First Love, which I quite liked, and I could see here, and this is not a diss, I can see why he's able to do 3 or 4 movies a year. He's not very complicated with a lot of fancy camera moves, but he does fill the frame with interesting things, and he keeps the plot moving. And
I
he has
strongly
a sense of
disagree,
humor.
but keep going.
He has an
anyone else
off-kilter
have a
sense of
moment?
humor, which comes through in the film, and they have fun with it. I mean, the CGI is not great in it, but I feel it's used well. And what they're doing with the CGI is like, oh, that's the only way to do it, so we will do it, and it'll be fun. Because I like the big move is to get a hold of a rocket launcher and just kind of blow up the buildings these guys are in. So it's like going, yeah, I'm here for this.
Yeah, blow up more guys with rocket launchers. That's what I'm here for that. That's
That was impressive. That was impressive.
Rambo Part 2 style. There you go.
Yeah. No, it was.
No, I was all in for that. I mean, yeah, and it's I do agree that the accused of being racist against Koreans is definitely a large part of the film, but he is an outsider, never quite accepted. So I kind of like that too, and I like that he dyed his hair salt and pepper gray for no reason particularly, but except that it looks cool. I feel, and I like going, yeah,
does it?
Oh, he's going to battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was cool that his friend gave that tip about the saran wrap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
And,
but does
I feel like these are these little personal touches that are throughout the film that makes it a Takashi Miike film and not just kind of the generic actioner. And I'm all for that. I enjoyed all of that, and I enjoyed the relationship that he had with the one Korean girl. They never really get too deep into it, but I feel like they struck a relationship just through looking at each other and just being with each other. They seem to care about each other, even though they don't act on it too much. But I feel that was nice, and there's lots of things. I like that his relationship with his kind of sidekick friend there too, and they make it through. And I felt when they get to that actual factory at the end and things are blowing up and big guns are being pulled out, I'm all for that. So I had fun. I feel it gets stronger as it goes along, although I feel like they're telling him to cherish life, and I want him to go. I want to say screw that. I want to see him get revenge, but I guess that is the point. And I haven't seen much of Takashi Miike. I've seen this, and I've seen First Love, and I thought both of them were good and fun, and I'd like to see more. Nat, I think you want to jump in up front.
I want to hear what Angela said because I'm pretty sure I would agree with that.
Sounds like Nat has some negative comments he's ready to say here.
Well, we want to hear from Nat. I think I was like trying to read too much into it because I had a couple of moments where I was like, does his best friend really exist? Or is it like he's hallucinating his best friend? Because like his best friend was kind of
he exists.
Yeah, no, he does.
I
decided that he does, but like I had several moments where like he'd be like, yeah, we gotta go shoot those guys, and then he would like disappear. Like he's not involved in it, and then he would like come back in again, and I was like, is that?
I think that's just the way the scenes are shot. Yeah.
That's what I ended up deciding. I was like, no, he's really there, because then there was something later where he's clearly engaged. But like so that was like a little white rabbit I kept like chasing that ended up like I was like, oh, I'm reading way too much into this. This is not. There's no.
The film is about the path of the Yakuza is to go beyond death, and that's what the beginning of the film. That's what the film is. His real story ends after he dies, as you saw by the vending machines.
Yeah, living his best life.
That's right. Living his best life. Yeah.
I will say
Matt, what
I
about
did
you?
really think that the where he takes it out on the rival gang in the garage. I felt that was to be brutal. Maybe not old boy brutal, but it was up there.
You mean when he
Yeah.
kicked their ass in his flip flops?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good scene.
All right. I first I have to change my guess for who gave me the movie, because clearly Cody gave this movie to Angela. It's
No
so
kidding.
flagrantly obvious. It's
I thought you
My
guys would guess
God.
it right away.
never been more obvious.
I will say that I'm actually a little offended that Robert and Nat didn't realize this, because this is on my top 50.
I didn't want to be racist and just say that every time a foreign movie is
So I
given
think
during this,
you guys
it's always
were
the
not
foreign
paying
guy who's giving
attention
it.
when I was
but-
doing my top 50 list on our podcast.
Well, yeah, this has
Well-
like 15 names in it, Cody. I mean, we can't remember all of these things.
I remember a lot of
To be
your
fair,
top 50.
I think
Rekka Moran.
Jim and I basically came to the conclusion that you gave this one too when we were chatting.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course. I love Takashi Miike, and I love Yakuza films.
I'm going to give you a direct quote. It went like this. Are there
Mhm.
subtitles in this movie? Yes, Matt. Cody
Fuck.
gave it to you.
Oh.
I've given Ford films in the past. I object.
Yeah. It
It's
threw me
true.
off.
It's
It
true.
threw me off because this one doesn't have Rucker Hauer in it. So kudos to you.
Oh, I did find a Rucker Hauer film for our next podcast, but that'll
That's true.
be 2 months from now.
Coming shortly. So I'm gonna have to say that probably. Well, I want to say Robert because I always do, but I'll say Jim. I'm gonna switch it to Jim. Gave me Going in Style. No, I'm gonna be quick because I clearly, Cody, let's hear your explanation for everything. I will say that this is the one movie I had not seen prior to this.
Aha, I knew it.
Yep. And how did you guess? And I don't think I've actually seen another Takashi Miike, and I feel ashamed for that. But I enjoyed it. I think the thing that stuck out to me most in this is even when there is not much going on in terms of like the dialogue or ostensibly the plot, he has a way of crafting an interesting visual scene. And what comes to mind is, I forget the whole setup, but basically I think enemy gangsters are chatting and they're talking in this like abandoned lobby of a hotel, and one of them is on stage. And they're just kind of like having this argument, which is such a weird place for them to be doing that, especially since they have moments where they're just sitting around like a poker table essentially. But it is kind of striking just having these little moments in locations or areas that just seem way out of context for what's being discussed or presented, and I like that. But let's hear from you,
Glad to
Cody.
hear. What did you think of the music, Nat?
I don't remember anything about the music. Probably
God damn
sucked.
it. Jim, did you notice anything about the music?
Oh, I liked it. That was the one
Okay.
thing I really liked.
All right, good.
I mean, the what do you call it? Flower Traveling Band? Or
Yeah,
something?
so this is a band from the 70s called Flower Traveling Band, as Jim said, and they were most famous for basically just covering British progressive rock.
Yeah.
So their first album was just covers of like King Crimson. All the soundtrack from this film is from their album called Satori, and the band members are in the film.
Oh, that's cool.
So the father of Kunisada, who comes back as a force ghost, is I believe either the guitar player or the lead singer. I can't remember. The guy who has the dreadlocks, who's like the family friend, who's kind of like gone straight, is also from the band. And the detective, who just is randomly playing guitar on stage in the strip club, also in the band.
Wow.
That's cool.
And the music rules.
Yeah, it's pretty badass.
It works.
Mm-hmm.
Little Black Sabbath-y.
Yep.
Yeah. The movie was okay. I mean, I guess I don't know. Like, I guess what I probably am way off in thinking like Takashi Miike is batshit crazy, and maybe I just like think like Ichi the Killer. I mean, Audition is definitely reserved, but uncomfortable movie to say the least. But yeah, I don't know. Like Yakuza is, I certainly find that interesting, but I don't know if it really added a whole lot outside of like, oh, cool, those rocket launchers, they're gonna go all out at certain moments. And I guess like Robert, I was anticipating more revenge, and also I was watching Jackie Chan movies, and they were all kind of like set up the same way and often involved gangsters of some kind, or at least a central bad guy. And I'm like, come on, let's get to the action, let's get to some crazy stuff, let's get some more hands on top of throats severed off, and maybe that's just me.
Leave the hand marks there.
Yeah.
For all subsequent scenes.
For sure. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, because like I haven't explored that much of Miike. I'm sure Cody can speak to this. If like my perception.
Well,
of
did
like,
you think Mr. Sue was cool? Mr.
Sure.
Sue, the guy with the machine guns. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Mr. Sue was the best.
Yeah. No, that was a highlight. The music was great. He spices things up with a little sex scene and a little mutilation here and there. I wouldn't say I was bored, but like I guess because it starts out with a bang and certainly ends with a bang, I was like kind of wanting more of that. So yeah, the rest of it was fine. I mean, maybe I just wanted to get a little weirder, just because like I thought Takashi Miike is a weird dude. I heard about some of the things in Visitor Q, but I guess he does all sorts of stuff, right? Like not just over the top wackiness.
Yeah, he's made children's films, and he's made remakes of films.
Yeah, he's done a little bit of everything, I guess. So yeah, I mean, maybe knowing what I'm in for, going back and watching this in the future, maybe I'll be a little kinder to it and just go, all right, yeah, for what it is, it works fine. But yeah, I just didn't get a whole lot of like, ooh, that was amazing, throughout the whole movie. I just thought like it started out great, ended great, rocket launcher, great score, but didn't stick with me, sadly.
I was thinking that, Takashi Miike, there's a lot of Takashi Miike on Tubi, and I feel that's like a perfect venue for Takashi Miike.
It is. I actually own this film on DVD.
How many movies has he made at this point?
I don't know. He's made like 5 a year since the 90s, since early 90s.
So many movies. So many.
I think it's like 117 director credits I saw, but I might be wrong.
There is like a very large video market, or there was in the 90s anyway, like to make cheap, low budget films that would just be like they're like direct to video. So they're
I've seen 13 Assassins. Yes, I've seen that. That's good.
So they're called the VCD. So I think he started out as being part of what's called V Cinema, which is like VCD films. So he would make like 5, 6 a year, but they would be shot for very cheap. They wouldn't even make it to theaters. And then eventually his films started to get put into theaters because they thought they were good. So, and then he moved to actually making theatrical films. But yeah, his early career, he got used to making like 5 films a year. And he uses the same CGI company that Alain Resnais does for his last film. Yeah.
So, Cody, what did you think of Deadly Outlaw Rekka?
Well, if you remembered our top 50 list, it's one of my favorite films.
It's one of your favorites. Yeah.
So
fair enough. You got me there.
I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's very beautiful and poetic, and I think it's a good exploration of brotherly love and revenge. I think it's very postmodern and funny.
Was he doing his own Butch and Sundance ending?
I don't know. I don't fully understand the ending. It's just that there is a repeated line throughout the film that like death is only the beginning. So I think it's just that they survived. Now they're kind of beyond. Just like his dad comes back as a ghost, like no one really dies. And yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know Butch Cassidy that well, to be honest. So
Yeah. Well, they end up going out.
I know
of
they
the
run off
blaze,
the cliff.
guns
and
blazing
there's
into
like a free
machine
swing.
gun fire.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like there is a bit of a, I guess, sort of like a reference to John Woo a bit with all the doves. I don't know if he's making fun of John Woo, but yeah, it's there. Yeah, I just think it's a really fun, good film, interesting film, smart film. I do like the slow moments and then how it kind of quickly changes to like sudden bursts of violence. A lot of his Yakuza movies are like that, I would say. They're not really balls to the wall action. They're more sporadic, like they are in this film, and they aren't really straightforward either.
Yeah, it had that vignette feel. Like it was like scene, and then we went somewhere else, and like the cadence was interesting, and
Yeah, and like the
in
intro of the film is cut like a montage, like where you're seeing later parts show up in the beginning,
right,
which you have no context for when you start the film.
yep.
And I also like the look of the film, even though it has a very cheap digital look. I think it works for it. But I can fully understand why no one would like the movie or enjoy it, or anyone would, or why some might not like it, because it has like a weird pace to it, and it is,
It is interesting.
and like the story's a bit convoluted. But yeah, I kind of knew you guys would guess that it was me once we started talking about it. So
it wasn't hard.
Yeah, you gave yourself away big time.
Yeah.
So you signed
Yeah,
that one.
but
It's like a Takashi Miike film. I wonder who gave that.
Yeah, but you really like this one, and
You
that's
couldn't
really,
contain
that's fun.
yourself.
Yeah, I love
of
it.
No, I
course.
couldn't contain
There's nothing wrong with
myself.
that. Yeah.
Also, I thought Angela would like it, and she doesn't do Cabin in the Woods anymore because she's too busy. So this is kind of like Cabin in the Woods, but not too bad.
Yeah, he didn't eat
Or-
anyone, and it was
Mhm.
a lot of action, so I liked it.
Mhm.
I also thought like there are very quiet moments in this movie.
True.
Like there's not dialogue. Like it is people just doing or just being. And again, like the cadence was like disturbing, but in a good way. Like I would start to like pay attention in a different way because I was like, what's going to happen? You know, like it felt like a deep breath almost between sort of pieces of it. So it was really interesting. If I had to pick like well, has everybody said what they want to say about it before I
I will say I do like how everyone yells at each other a lot.
We can
Also,
start
I'm a
doing
big
that
Tabata
here.
fan. Yeah, we should do that. Yeah. I really like Tabata and Mr. Sue. I actually were probably my favorite characters just because they had a completely different like vibe from like everybody else. They were just like doing a job and they had like a whole like buddy thing going on. I found them very enjoyable.
They are cool.
I was kind of cheering for them, to be honest. Like if I had to pick, it was tough to pick. It felt like there was no one to cheer for, but like if I had to pick someone, it would be them. It's a
All
cool
right.
gun.
How would you?
Angela,
Yeah. How would you?
Yeah.
what gift would you compare it to?
So I thought a lot about this today, and I decided it's like if somebody gives you like spicy hot sauce, you know, and you're like, is it going to be too spicy for me? And then it's almost too spicy, but you're like, no, I like this burn. Like this is good. Like it's on my edge, but I like it. So yeah, it's like a nice bottle of like hot sauce.
Cool.
Mm.
Maybe I'm the only one that gets sauces for Christmas. It's a thing. Sauces and jams, I get a lot of those.
Sauces are good.
I get
I
hot
give
sauces
sauces
for
to
Christmas,
Sarah.
Yeah.
That's a podcast I want to hear. Sauces and jams.
Mhm.
Sauces and jams.
Mixed together.
I wonder how many people listening to the horror sequels episode in their car of this podcast started applauding when Matt made an appearance. That would be me.
And all we wanted to talk to him about was Howling 3.
Yeah.
Recipients.
That's not what I expected at all, but I was delighted. I think when Paul Thomas Anderson's new movie comes out, though, I'm just gonna contact Matt and say, hey, let's just talk about Paul Thomas Anderson's new movie together, because we never seem to agree.
Yeah. He would
just
love
for fun.
You gotta bait him into it. You gotta give him like red meat where he can't help himself.
And some hot sauce too. Maybe I'll just throw some hot sauce.
Red meat with hot sauce. Yep. Yeah. Red meat with hot sauce.
Or instead of like hot ones, you could do jellied ones, and just like
Yeah, exactly.
you're eating progressively sweeter bits of jelly for each discussion of the films.
Mm-hmm.
Then you feed him mushrooms once you get the Phantom Thread. But
yeah. Then he'll start liking Paul Thomas Anderson.
there you go. And he gets sick, and you have to take care of him, and his convalescence is just watching Paul Thomas Anderson movies. The dash of saucy Brian De Palma.
Make me hungry. Well, I got Whiplash.
I can take it.
Yes, you have Whiplash. Yeah.
And not because I was in a car accident. Ah!
Oh my gosh. I thought of that when I was watching it. I was like, oh dear. This is not ideal timing, maybe.
Oh, but it's okay, because I'm not going to bury the lead. I love this movie. So Whiplash, if you haven't seen it, it's a film from 2014, I think. Oh my God.
2014.
10 years?
Yeah.
That's crazy. What is time?
J.K. Simmons still looks the same.
Yeah. Yeah, not aging at all. Just saw him in Juror number 2, actually. So yeah, delightful. So this follows first-year music conservatory student Andrew, played by Miles Teller, on his journey to becoming a world-renowned jazz drummer. As he is practicing one day, an instructor and band leader, Terrence Fletcher, played by the aforementioned J.K. Simmons, discovers him and invites him to join the studio band as an alternate. And from that point on, Andrew's life begins to change. His passion for drumming becomes a bit of an obsession in the pursuit of perfection. And all while enduring, well, let's just say, a form of abuse from someone quite demanding and unrelenting and intense, to say the least. Yet, this teacher, he feels kind of justified in his actions, but he eventually experiences repercussions, especially after Andrew is involved in a car crash and starts making serious sacrifices in his own life, including cutting out his girlfriend, neglecting his dad, and just becoming kind of more selfish, although determined and driven to be the best he can be and, obviously impress his instructor. But at what cost? That's what I ask you all. What cost? So, yeah, the emotional and physical agony he goes through at times is just, so visceral, so intense, so loud. You gotta love drums. You gotta love jazz. You gotta love J.K. Simmons. And I love movies about music and musicians. Even if jazz isn't my normal go-to genre of choice, I still think the music in this is excellent. This was originally a short film by Damien Chazelle, who I believe made a musical before this, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
They did one after this.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. One that went on to much acclaim, and then another one that's been very divisive with Babylon, right? Yeah, but no,
that is First Man.
Yes, of course,
Which
First Man
seems to be forgotten.
Good. Yeah, that does seem to be forgotten out of all of his films, but it's still quite good. Whiplash is my favorite because I just love a quality, like, contrasting dynamic between two opposing forces, which we get here with Andrew and Fletcher, and just there are scenes in this that just like get on my nerves in the best way possible. Like, I react every time to everything, and I just like seeing a determined student clashing with an overbearing teacher. And on one hand, it could be like, yeah, just about channeling your talent into like kind of a form of self-actualization, but it does, come at a cost of mental stability, like I've talked about. And to some extent, he's going to live with trauma as a result of what Fletcher has put him through. But the ending is something that I've had conversations about, certainly with Patrick when we did our year-end episode. That it's an interesting ending, to say the least, that we can sort of all talk about as a group here, because on one hand it's sort of shown as being triumphant, like he's finally able to break free and do the things he wants to do on his own terms, and almost give the bird to Fletcher, and and like still pursue that level of greatness that he's aspired to this whole time. But he's kind of a lost soul, because he's almost like become Fletcher in that regard, so it's like kind of a weird gray area to say, like, yes, that ending is happy, and I don't think it is necessarily. It's like a gray area for me. But I love it. I love everything about it. It's just, any movie about obsession speaks to me. Like, you can go to something like Zodiac, but this is just a very different kind of version of that, where music and talent comes into play, and certainly control and power dynamics, all that stuff rules. And no, the music is great. The editing, the performances, all surrounding this really compelling narrative that I think a lot of people can relate to if they ever, got into a competition of some kind. Doesn't have to be in a band or music, but certainly sports. You can understand like that interplay throughout. It's just it's become one of my favorite movies, period. And I get so riled up watching it. Thanks for gifting me this movie, whoever you did, because I love it, and I continue to love it. Let's see what Angela has to say. Why not? Let's have the guests go up front this time. That might be fun.
I love that you love it, Jim.
Ooh.
Whoa.
This was really challenging for me. Like, really challenging. I've never seen it before. I avoided seeing this movie despite its accolades, after watching the trailer back in the day and being like, I feel sad, and I don't want to feel sad for that long.
Mm-hmm.
In a Like, I can feel sad, that's fine, but like, I just like that level of like abuse, just like, I feel so uncomfortable watching. Like, humiliation, I have a really hard time observing that.
Mm.
And so I have never seen it. And so I was like, when it was on the list, I was like, like it's been long enough, it's been out there, like, got a lot of people like it, like, let's do this. Oh, it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
And but the performances are so good, and of course the music is like phenomenal, and it adds so much tension. And like, physically, I found myself like tense, like I physically was tense, and like, it drives that emotion through the struggle between them. So I mean, it was super challenging. It's a good movie. Did I enjoy it? Enjoy isn't the word I would use. I really struggled with the ending.
Yeah,
I
I do that. I
feel
do too
like
now. Yeah.
I don't understand what it's I don't understand what it's trying to say. Like, I don't, and it's maybe not, maybe like that's the point, but it almost is like, it still feels like he craves his teacher's approval. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even though he takes control at the end, the teacher really takes control at the end, right? Because he then
Sure.
like guides his performance. And so ultimately you're like, is he just right back where he started, which is chasing something he can never have, which is this psycho's approval, because it doesn't exist. So like, I ended the movie really worried for uh for Miles, and I
Yeah,
want his
I can
dad
totally
to
see
make him
that.
come home.
Aw.
But I see what others see in it. It is like a thriller somehow, like a musical thriller, and like you aren't quite sure like how it's gonna go. But yeah, it does an interesting exploration of genius and drive and like how badly, what are you willing to give up for something that you think is the most important thing. And oof, but it's a tough watch for me.
Oh yeah, it makes me very anxious watching
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
it. Oof.
Like, oh yeah.
Because
I
I,
had
I
to, like,
was
walk
in
it off.
I was in band, but obviously I didn't
Same.
have a teacher like
Same.
that, you know.
No.
And
I have nothing but good memories.
if I had him as a teacher, I'd leave. I wouldn't put up with that. Like honestly,
No.
that is abuse. I mean, it totally is. It's like watching a drill instructor, you know.
Well, they're all scared all the time. Like, and
Yeah.
like, he just like messes with them. Like, oh, it's so psychological, and like you see it happening, and like, but they're all like, they all are there because like it's so important to them. And you see them like struggling with like, yeah, this is really messed up, but I still want to be first chair. So like, what am I gonna do, right? Like, yeah.
That's the right response, though. Ah.
Yeah, like, that's where I was left. Robert, how are you feeling about it?
Well, I don't think I've seen it since since the one time I saw it in the theaters when it came out, and I thought it was my favorite film of the year, and I remembered it strongly, and so I don't feel like I got a new perspective on this time, but I did enjoy it greatly, and it's maybe the most intense film outside of Uncut Gems that I've seen in a while.
Huh.
I think Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons are terrific. I mean, they so dominate the film. It's kind of like I kind of wonder what the other students are seeing when it goes on here. I mean, I feel like their relationship is certainly codependent, probably, or maybe even sadomasochistic.
Yeah.
And I think the one new thing I said about it when the J.K. Simmons justify it about how if nobody threw a symbol at Charlie Parker's head, he might never became Bird. But I kind of thought about, well, what's the other thing that could have happened? Well, Charlie Parker could have been killed, and then there would have been no Bird, too. So I think there's a fine line which J.K. Simmons seems to be completely unaware of. And I feel like there's no doubt that he's the villain of the film, even if his goal of creating the next Charlie Parker is admirable. But I feel like Charlie Parker would become Charlie Parker regardless. And Miles Teller Andrew will become whatever he could become. He's driven enough. He doesn't need to be pushed, or at least doesn't need to be pushed much. Maybe just being honest would be the better policy than being abusive. But
yeah, because one thing that like the Simmons character misses, and this might be indicative of white guy making movie about jazz, because he's done that twice now, right?
Yes, he sure has.
Yeah,
like the second one was way worse. Like it was bad. But like this one, at least you could tell it was based off of someone who maybe went to music school. But the thing that I think J.K. Simmons' character is missing, and maybe this was intentional by the director, was that like you can be like technically the best at an instrument and still not be Charlie Parker. Like it's about you have something that's creative that you can't really learn. Like you can learn and model yourself after other great musicians or artists, but if you don't have like the creative spark or whatever, like it doesn't matter how good you are, or like technically proficient you are at an instrument, like you won't be the next Charlie Parker. Like Thelonious Monk was like technically not one of the best piano players, but he was, he's considered one of the best jazz musicians, and it's just because he made great music.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of musicians like that. And I think that's where like that's where part of the film like kind of comes off as like silly to me, because and I am glad that they did address it with like the abuse allegations and the kid who had emotional problems, like commit suicide and so forth. Like I'm glad they brought that up, because throughout the whole film I was thinking like there's no way like this like a teacher like this would ever get away with this. Like it's so over the top. And not to mention like like no offense to musicians, but like the market for a jazz musician is like pretty dismal. Like it's not like like if you bust your ass and become the best, you're not going to be Charlie Parker. There's no audience for it anymore. So like just to have a teacher who's like that insane for something like where you're not going to have a job at the end just like comes off as really stupid. And yeah, like I used to live with musicians who all went to like this jazz school in the city I grew up in. Unfortunately, like none of them are doing it now because like again there's no work, but like they had annoying teachers like that were obnoxious, but they would never like throw a cymbal or a chair or like call someone like a slur or something. Like they would maybe embarrass someone and say like, hey, like play this for me, a student couldn't play it, and then like there's like that element to it, and I do think there's like healthy competition is good for anything, but this one just comes off as like a little sensationalist. But I do love the way it ends, and it's mostly because of the way it's shot. Like I like how it's just going back and forth. You don't really know what's going to happen next, and it is kind of saying like that he is becoming like J.K. Simmons basically, because he's basically complying, like he's complying with him, like by being so defiant. Like he's kind of like accepting like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to just keep, and like he is like he is trying to piss him off, but it does sound but it kind of brings them closer, and they kind of come on the same page, which is weird. But again, it's like totally movie land like stuff, like you would never behave like that in like a band. Like there's like one video I remember seeing this video of Miles Davis stopping playing because Herbie Hancock played the wrong note, and it was like pretty out there, but all he did was glare at him. Like it's not like he like threw his trumpet at him or something. So yeah, I just don't like. I do like the movie, and I like that it's like a serious drama, which is pretty lacking in American movies for like the last 20 years. Like that's all moved to TV. And that's something that I think like there should be more of. And I love the performances. I love Miles Teller. He was really good. Yeah. And like all the side characters were really good too. Like they're all very believable students. And Paul Reiser was really good as well. But yeah, there's certain things like I don't know if like but that could be intentional. Like it could be like this movie is a takedown of this type of teacher, right? Who's like very tone deaf, and is like who is like not sure how to be a good teacher, I guess. Like or like he only knows one way to do it, and it's because he's fixated on this one story from Charlie Parker's biography, whereas like he appears to ignore like pretty much a bunch of other details about other musicians who are just as good. And then basically creates a whole teaching philosophy based off around that. Like he's obviously unstable. Like he's obviously mentally unstable.
I don't disagree, and I will have to say that I'm not a believer in that one bad day origin story. I mean, sure, something like that probably will fuel for the fire for Charlie Parker, but I don't think that one incident made Charlie Parker who he was. I don't believe that in general. I think there's an accumulation of things. It's not just one thing that happens. I don't believe in the superhero origin story or the supervillain origin story.
Well, yeah, and like not to be elitist, but like you have to be like naturally talented. Like you can't just be good at an instrument. Yeah, like you have to have something like where you can create something new, right?
Yeah, you have to have inspiration and talent and hard work all combined into something. You just can't have one of them. And
Yep.
I feel like Fletcher's one huge flaw besides being abusive is that I don't feel he ever teaches any of his students to love music. I mean, they can play well because he is a perfectionist, but I don't get the sense that any of them loves what they're doing.
See, I would say like Miles Teller's character, I get the impression he does love it, like because like he's like listening
I don't
to
know
all
if
the
he
music.
loves it. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
But I feel he's living it to learn how to do it and to do it. I don't know if he's listening out of pure love, but I think there's a goal in mind of being great. But he's driven by greatness that I love music.
As ambiguous as the end of the movie is, like I think it's fairly straightforward that he's not playing it for the love of music. Like he doesn't go back to the drums for love of the song. Right. Whatever he's going back for, it's more like the focus of his relationship with Fletcher. But I can jump into, and I think I saw this when it came out, and then this is the first time I've seen it since then, and pretty much in agreement here. I think one odd question to ask is Fletcher himself actually talented? And if he is a fraud, I don't know. I think it's good that they keep that ambiguous because there is no explicit scene of somebody calling him out as a fraud or questioning his capabilities. But I think it's fair to say, as Robert pointed out, if this is your only way of teaching, then yeah, you're potentially not a good teacher. If your students have committed suicide, you're probably a redneck. No, you're probably not a good teacher. And have there actually been students of his that have been fairly successful directly due to his teaching? And I think the movie also keeps that ambiguous. But this is really about, I think, the relationship between these two. And I really like the editing of this movie. I think it's really, really well paced. And I think every scene in this movie, even when the two characters aren't on screen together, is about their relationship. Even him striking up the relationship with the gal in the movie theater.
Nicole.
Like that's there, so that he can dump her to focus on the music. The scene with him having the family dinner is him kind of like shitting on everyone else because he.
But they were being obnoxious.
Yes,
that's true.
Yeah.
They deserve that. But really, everything I think comes back to the relationship between these two. And yeah, again, I say is Fletcher actually a good teacher? Does that even matter? But I think that just the dynamic between these two is just so compelling, and just keeps me asking questions of this. Like I remember the car accident, but I also don't remember like what the fallout is after that or what happens after that. And the fact that he just goes on stage and almost passes out after getting into a car accident, like, oh, I forgot my sticks and I forgot this and I overslept, and all these things just keep on mounting. That is kind of deliciously unbearable. I think
that
it's just
car accident scene was pretty well done.
Oh
though.
my god.
Yeah.
It was a jump scare for me. Like
me too. I didn't see it coming.
Yeah. Like I kind of did. We're in a car and he's speeding. You're like, oh, okay, but like, oh yeah, no, it caught me off guard. It was a moment.
And I mean, if you were to break down the elements of the plot, it is fairly straightforward. Like, guy goes to school, he gets put into the major leagues, he misses the cut, and then he tries to testify in his suit to get the teacher fired and then shows back up. But, as straightforward as that is, I think, again, this dynamic is played so well that it just charges everything and it just takes every advantage it can to explore their relationship. And I would say, yeah, I think the ending is deliberately ambiguous, but I could also read it as he goes back to kind of like both defy and validate and remind J.K. Simmons that, like, you are getting too caught up in the petty squabbles between us when you really should be focusing on kicking somebody's ass to focus on perfection. And I think when he is kind of willing to embrace that pain, that kind of jars J.K. Simmons back into, okay, accepting it, like getting back on track with being abusive for good or bad. But I know we can speculate about the ending. I will say also one thing that is interesting is that you really don't see J.K. Simmons or Fletcher teaching other students who are who play other instruments besides the drums. I mean, you get a little bit of it, but you don't really see what those interactions look like. And is it like this guy just has a huge hard on for drums, or does he treat everybody this way? And they do go out down the line when he's subbing and he's like, let's see if you're your first year just because you're pretty and have tits or something like that. But I mean, you don't really see him in any other context than how he treats the drums, which is interesting. But again, also just maybe because they just want to focus on his relationship with Andrew. But no, this is just as powerful as it was when I first saw it, and I'm glad to have come back to it.
Yeah, I think it really is a testament to the sheer charisma of J.K. Simmons that you can clearly see he's a bad guy, but you can see how he can skate by because he just kind of this demands attention and grabs it and he's driven. He might be mad, but he's mad, in maybe, well, he's in the pursuit of a noble goal, but at least you can see that he has vision.
Yeah, he's an asshole, and he admits that he's an asshole, and it's just like, I'm doing this because I care, and it's not the, I guess it's, judgmental in some capacity to be like, well, I don't like his methods, and I don't think they are right, morally, ethically, however you want to phrase it, but it's just, he's justified. He feels like he's doing what he feels is going to lead to greatness, but again, like, he's kind of delusional at the same time, not thinking about how this is psychologically affecting those, he inflicts this kind of
intense like there's that
training.
Like there's that. It's like, I don't, like, because like I would say, like, where it kind of jumps the shark a bit for me is like when he chucks the chair at the person. And it's because like no matter how much you love music, like, no one wants to be hit in the face with a chair. Like, because like, imagine you came home, it's like, yeah, by the way, like, my teacher threw a chair at me in the head today. I have a concussion now.
Right.
I don't think I can play drums anymore, and I also can't like turn on lights and watch TV. like there's like a little bit of like kind of like eye rolling moments. Like, it's not just the ethical stuff. It's like he's so fixated on this one story from Charlie Parker. He's expanded it all into like, that's how he understands teaching and music. And it's like, there's like all these amazing musicians who are technically not very talented, but made like beautiful, great music in jazz and outside the genre. So it's just like, he just comes off as kind of like at certain points, like when you get pulled out of the film, like you're not into like the vibe of the film, because the film has a cool style to it. Like, his character is like completely ridiculous.
Delusional.
And I mean,
he's really up his own ass. Like,
the story
up the river.
The story is also like Joe Jones and Charlie Parker were actually musicians. Like, that, if that story is actually true, like, that came up between two musicians. It's something that's a little bit more organic than this guy who's trying to constantly force it on at least this student, if not other students. And yeah, maybe it's just like sadism, where it's like, okay, well, I've found a position where I can mistreat people in under the guise of saying that this is really what makes you great. But again, like I think at one point he even says, I've never had a Charlie Parker in this program. And is it like, is talent really that rare, or are you just a shitty teacher? And when the scene with his friend's little girl who's like playing drums or playing an instrument, and he greets her, he's like very cheerful with her, and he says, you know, are you going to be one of my students one day? Is there anyone in the audience watching that scene who feels like, oh, well, that's going to help her become a good musician? Or is it like, oh, please God, no, like she's too young. I don't want to see her go through that. And, you know, again, it's like, does he actually have any talent of his own? Does he even have a good understanding of music? It's surprising when he shows up after he's been fired that he can actually play an instrument, and he's just like, you know, playing something slow on the piano. But that's like,
yeah, like I got the impression like he's a good musician, but I got the impression like he's more of a teacher. And
I get the impression that he's a fine musician, but unexceptional musician.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, average.
Yeah, because almost every composer was like a musician on some level, like or like a band leader or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, in jazz.
But there's that. I will say I don't feel that the ending is that ambiguous. I mean, Paul Reiser.
Yeah, same here. I kind of thought it just meant one thing. Yeah. I
mean, Paul Reiser sees the self-destructiveness of this and walks out because he doesn't want to witness it, even if his son is having a great moment. But and I feel that the most painful scene might be where Miles breaks up with his girlfriend, and I feel that's what he's clearly being an asshole there, and it makes you wonder what she ever saw in him at that moment, but he's being a preemptive asshole, and all she calls it out, he seems to be totally unself-aware of that. So, I mean, I guess he thinks he's being the noble thing because he knows it's not going to work out, and it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy there because he doesn't even try. Which I kind of feel is that it's like nobody's trying to be anything but the role that they're kind of assigned for. He can be great, and gosh darn it, he's going to be great. No distractions. Well, I kind of feel that Fletcher is nothing but a distraction for him. I mean, I feel he still would have been driven. I mean, maybe winning Fletcher's approval wasn't necessary. He would aim to win somebody's approval at some point, because he clearly loves drumming. He's always loved drumming. I think they have the scenes showing that he loves drumming since he was a little kid. So I feel that he was already well on his way to making a drummer. Maybe there is something to be said for pushing. I do kind of agree with Fletcher's thought that the most destructive thing to say is like "good job."
Yeah,
so
I agree that as well.
Good job when you don't.
Yeah, if you're saying it's to be condescending or dismiss somebody, it's just like reducing it to that.
Because it's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very good to have competition and for people to like try to one up each other. But then if you get into like psychological games, like, you know, where he gives them the wrong music to play in front of a huge audience, or he gets like another student that he knows sucks just to toy with him. Yeah. Again, throws a chair at him. Like, yeah, I think like it's beyond that. Like, I think like, and the guy has almost no self-awareness about that. But on the other hand, I do like the movie.
He knows not to act.
Sorry, go ahead.
He knows not to act like that in front of witnesses, other than his fellow students. But yeah,
I
Yes,
guess,
some
yeah.
stuff.
There was a lot of witnesses though with the chair.
Yeah, that's true.
But like I will say though, like I do like the movie just in general. Like I like the style of it, the editing. I love that it's about music, and it's actually good music. It's not like I don't know of any. I don't know many good films about music that are not documentaries. So yeah, I do appreciate it for that.
Yeah, I will say if I don't know if Fletcher or Miles Teller really loves the music, I know Damien Chazelle really loves the music.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And I thought Miles Teller looked like he was playing the drums. Like he can play, right?
Yeah. That's my understanding that he can play.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty cool movie, but again, like I with the ending, to me it was a weird like feeling when I first saw it with a crowd and they're all cheering, at the end, because it's the way I feel like the way the film is playing it is like, yeah, he showed him. Yeah, look at him. Like,
Yeah,
but
it's not like it's not like it's not like cut and dry. Like it's more complicated.
Yeah.
But I do agree that it is an impressive solo, and it is an impressively cut and shot sequence.
Yeah, like all like the camera whips back and forth. That was pretty cool. The film, like, it's not like this film a lot, but I was reminded of that film Tar, which I really liked, which is about music, which is about like a person who might not be a great person, but you're still interested in watching her and so forth. Like I do appreciate that there are still films being made in the last 20 years that are like adult dramas that are not just action films or superhero films.
Yeah, be sure to see The Brutalist this year. It's quite good. Quite good.
That is ringing a bell. Yes.
Yeah, it's a new Brady
I'm
Corbett
looking
film.
forward to seeing that when it eventually rolls out.
Yeah.
To these places that are not Chicago, New York, and LA.
Probably won't be till early next. Well, obviously now that we're almost in the new year. So.
Well, it's got Adrian Brody.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. I mean, I don't think it's like this. It might even win Best Picture, and everybody's saying that, but like, I probably need to see it again. There's still things about it that didn't sit well, but I still think it's worth seeing. It's one of those movies like we're talking about that's just for adults, and it's complex and very much like Tar in that regard. But,
I do kind of feel, if we're gonna segue into awards talk, we got Adora and the Brutalist. I think are going to be major players. Yeah.
And Nickel Boys is another. I think that people will be talking about.
Yeah, Nickel Boys. I want to see that too. I feel that would probably. I've seen Hale County, so I kind of think if it's anything like that, it's not going to be for your average moviegoer. But we will see.
Yeah.
So is Adrian Brody out of Rastafarian cosplay jail?
I would hope so.
20 years ago?
It was a long time ago. Yeah.
I would say that this film, in terms of a gift, obviously you don't want to say like, well, if it's like a drum set that I can bang on for hours on end. I would say it's like a gift card to a rage room where you just get to destroy a bunch of shit for as long as you want, and just like, take a, what you call it? I can't even think.
You like punch a pillow or something.
Yeah. You just get out your anger, get out your frustrations. Yeah. Just bring some drumsticks and just start beating shit up. I don't know. It might be fun. It's just good to get out your energy and your aggression. One. Yeah. I've never been to a rage room, but I want to try it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good gift.
Well, who do you think gave that to you, Jim?
I'm gonna go with Robert this time. I guess.
Okay. So, this is the time where we go and reveal who picked what. So, who gave Whiplash to Jim? I can say I did it.
Oh. Ooh.
Sorry, I missed that. Who did it? Robert?
The butler.
I did not.
Oh, Robert did not. Gotcha.
Oh wow. Okay.
I did not.
I did not.
It was me.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Got it. That makes sense. But the way you did good though, because the way you were talking about it, is like, oh, I've never seen this, and I don't know.
Which is true. 100% true.
Okay, well, you
100%
wanted
true.
you wanted to give an excuse to watch it. Yeah, I've done that before. Yeah, I have assigned movies where I'm like,
Yeah, and I follow you a lot on Instagram, and I see you posting a lot about music, and I was like, I want to find a really good music movie. So I looked at all these like top 10 music movies of all time, and it was on like every single one.
wow.
And so I just
Yeah.
resigned. I was like, you know what? I should watch this movie. Like, let's do it. Let's do it.
Good pick.
Well,
Yeah.
I know you and Patrick had a good conversation on your year-end best of the year episode too. So
Yeah.
I was very
that
happy
was
when I
fun.
saw that you received this one.
Me too.
I didn't think of it, but I'm glad that it went your way. So
Patrick really likes
Angela, I
to
know we
grind
don't
your
have to
gears.
guess. Angela, I know we don't really have to guess who gave Deadly Outlaw Rekka.
It was me.
What?
Surprise.
Thank you, Cody.
No problem. Thank you for giving such a good synopsis.
So, I guess Jim had given me Swimming to Cambodia. Who did give me Swimming to Cambodia?
It was me.
Oh,
Ooh,
twist.
Wow.
it is a twist. So,
Yep.
Cody, you received Blue Thunder, and you guessed Jim gave it to you.
Yeah, I did.
And Jim is still alive, but I gave you Blue Thunder.
You're a Blue Thunderhead.
Ooh.
Ooh. This was good. Yeah.
Which
some
means for the
surprises.
second year in a row, I am right. I think I was right last year. I don't remember. Who
So-
knows? Am I
So
right
that
last year?
just leaves that was right, because Jim did give you Going in Style.
Yep.
Yes.
Boom. I appreciate that. Thank you, Jim. I think
I-
good choices all around everyone.
Yeah, I had to redeem myself from last year with Doggy Woggies.
Oh, I like that. That was good.
Of course.
I
That was
forgot
cool.
about that.
Yeah.
I forgot that you gave that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That just immediately goes in my mind of a Cody film.
Yeah, that one.
I'm surprised somebody didn't follow that up with like the Holy Mountain.
I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah, no, you get the point.
Oh boy.
It stands on its
Actually,
own.
That may show up on the regular podcast at some point. At which point I'll be sure to invite Jim.
Yeah, I'm
Cool.
sure. we'll
Anyhow, I think
eventually.
that wraps it up. So I hope everybody's had a good year.
Okay.
Wrap it up here.
And we will see you in hell.
There, see you in hell.
And a happy new year.
Happy New
Ho ho
Year.
ho! Happy holidays.
I like to remind everybody that we will have a new episode coming up probably before the end of the year on Frankenstein Created Woman. A heartwarming story about a man soul trapped in a female body. If you have questions or comments, you can email us at skyespodcast@gmail.com. Post on this topic on social media, or just leave us a note on Facebook. Again, feel free to share a link on social media or leave a review. Thanks for listening. We hope you join us next week, I guess, for our discussion on Frankenstein Created Woman. In the meantime, we wish all of our listeners a happy holidays. Bye.
Take care.
So long.
Meow.
Joyful, holy Christi